Hey guys, welcome to Your Roadco. I'm one of your hosts, Christine, and I am your other co-host, Stacy. Today, I want to introduce to you Janis. I've worked with her maybe once personally, but I have met her once before I actually got to work with her. Great personality, very easy to warm up to. Like, she has a lot going for her, and that is why I wanted to bring her onto this podcast. Can you introduce yourself, Janis?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Janis Lozano, and I am a makeup and hair artist and wardrobe stylist.
And so, can you explain to people how uncommon it is to do all three of those things?
It's so uncommon, and it's funny because I've been doing makeup for about 22 years and hair for about 15. I didn't really start doing hair until my agent at the time was like, you have to start doing hair because people are booking hair and makeup, and it just started becoming more of the norm. So that's the reason I went into it. And wardrobe just kind of really fell into place because really I found myself on sets. I've always loved fashion and I've always loved the styling aspect of it, but I never thought I had the eye for it. I think it's a different creative being a makeup artist or a hair stylist than it is being a wardrobe stylist. But my agent kind of pushed me into it and I just started doing it. I loved it. I've been doing it for about 12 years now. It's definitely not my first passion. To me, makeup will always be my first passion. So if someone said to you, like, what do you choose? It would be makeup. But I think just because the industry has evolved so much and, rates have changed and crews have been cut, it makes me very, sellable. And that's the reason why my agents kind of pushed me into it. But yeah, I do all three.
That's kind of what we talked about whenever I first met you and we got to actually talk, is that even me as a fashion product stylist, that is not common. Most people like to do one thing, and like you have to be multifaceted and like be able to be a jack of all trades to even stay, I wouldn't say relevant, but stay working in this industry, because you just need to juggle everything and like have almost as many doors open to you as possible. Otherwise, you're not going to be working as much. Like, I've met people from New York and they were telling me like they do all the editorial shoots and all the magazine shoots and they only work like once a month or so.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were saying like they would love to get into what you're doing, even though this isn't fun. Like I do e-com. Like, it's not the funnest like editorial shoots where there's like food catering. Yeah, there's not food catering and it's not like a good time. We're just trying to get production done. Can you also tell us a little bit more of your background? Like, how did you get into the makeup industry? When did you know it was your passion? Like, was it when you were in high school? Was it when you were younger? What made you fall into these steps?
Yeah, absolutely. So I came from a family of women that were in the industry in some way or another. My mother was a model and an actress. My aunt, who's like my godmother, she's a makeup artist. And so I always kind of grew up around it. My grandmother was a hairstylist. She owned her own salon. So it's always been a part of who I am and my roots. But I actually wanted to be in front of the camera. So I started out as an actress since I was a young girl, like 6 years old, up until about like 17, 18, when I started falling in love more with the makeup aspect of it. I would find myself on set, always in the makeup trailers, always like getting like the best gossip and the best like makeup tips. And I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with not only the aspect of transformation and creating a different type of art on a different type of canvas, but also the idea that you can really boost someone's confidence or change their mood or their perspective in their day with, a little makeup. So I just loved that aspect of it. I loved how confident it makes, women and men. And so it kind of makes you feel like you have this power of instilling, some good in people and making them feel better about themselves or making them feel better about their day.
Yeah, like I love that you share that, like how you can change someone's day, their mood. And my sister, she's probably told you a little bit about me. Like, I love makeup, but like I'm in the military and we have a standard hairstyle, we have a standard look, and one of the controversial like conversations for women is if you wear makeup, you're just trying to like it takes away from like your professionalism, which is not true. Like,
yeah,
like
not at all. Yeah.
I think one of my friends, she was told, and she's like in the maintenance career field, and she's gorgeous, but she wore makeup
And some of the older like men who were in the military for at least 20 years was like, hey, if you want to be respected around here, you need to stop wearing makeup.
Wow.
And like, isn't that crazy? Because like, and I told her, because I still wore makeup, I get my lashes done and I'm doing the same thing. And I was like, if I don't feel good when I come into work, then like nobody's happy, right? Like I need to feel confident in my own skin, and wearing makeup makes me happy, and I don't do it for anybody else.
That's right. And I think there's a huge misconception of people that think that makeup is worn for others. Makeup is worn for yourself, you know? And maybe I look at it as like my armor, you know?
Right.
It's part of being a woman warrior, and like doing my face makes me feel good so I can go tackle the world. It's not for, you know, whoever's out there. I don't do it or put it on for somebody else. It's for myself. So it's ridiculous that anybody would have an opinion or think they could control somebody by telling them whether to wear it or not. And that's such a shame, because at the end of the day, she's a woman and she can express
Yeah.
herself however she wants to, you know?
Yeah. It should be, if that makes you happy, that's fine, and you get your work done. By any means, if makeup got in the way of your work, like, don't wear it. But there is no scenario where that is the case.
Right.
Think any less
And
of her or not take her command or whatever because
yeah,
she's wearing lipstick.
yeah, I could definitely resonate with what you're saying about like transforming someone. That's one thing doing what I do is like I was working at the Dillard's retail department store. I don't know if you knew that while I was in college, and I would do a lot of their visual stuff. And like I would take that upon myself. No one told me to do it. I would just make displays and do all sorts of things, and it would make me happy
Yeah.
taking nothing and making it into something. And that is what we do every day, like doing what we do. We go to photo shoots and nothing is there, nothing is made for us. We have to make a set, we have to like create an outfit, you have to like make someone's face like with makeup and everything, and set the mood and set the photos. Did you do any educational stuff for it, or did you, since your aunt was in that industry, did she kind of take you under her wing, or did you ask her for advice? And
A little bit of both. I started out in the retail counter space. So I actually worked for Estee Lauder and Chanel and Bobbi Brown and a few other brands. And I got a lot of education in that way. And then when I started to take my freelance work more seriously, or I wanted to branch out on my own, then I actually went to school. I went to MUD in New York for makeup, and I studied special effects because I thought I was going to go into the special effects arena. So I really wanted to be making monsters in movies. At least my 18-year-old self, that was her process at the time. But I ended up in the beauty world because being in New York, and it was just, you know, fashion was there, editorial work was more available than, you know, going to California and creating movies, or being a part of a movie crew. So that's kind of where, you know, I started originally. But yeah, and even throughout my career, I'm really big on education. I think it's important to constantly take classes, whether it's a workshop or a summit, or being involved with a network of people that are in my field. And there's a lot of people I look up to that I take classes from or I'll do workshops with, and I learn so much every single time. So it's just a constant learning process. And then, you know, there's a level of practice that I think a lot of people say, oh, I wish I was a makeup artist, but it intimidates me, or I can't imagine touching someone else's face. And, you know, it's a privilege to touch someone's face, like to be in their intimate space and for them to allow you to, like, you know, mess with their appearance. That's a huge privilege. So I think anybody can be a makeup artist, anybody that puts their mind to it, you know, just get education, get experience. And, you know, we're fortunate in the industry that we are. There's no rules. There's no set, like, you have to do this track in order to get here, you know, from there. You kind of just pick up between, you know, hands-on stuff and education that you've gotten along. And it just kind of, I feel like you learn more while you're doing it than you ever did in school.
I would
Um,
agree to that.
yeah, I don't feel like you have to go to school to do this, but I did because at the time, you know, I thought it was the right thing. And then I ended up going to hair school, you know, a couple of years later. But I also have a degree in like a regular university, something I don't even use.
Yeah,
But,
right.
you know, as far as education, yeah, I think it's so important. But I don't think that there's a set path for
Yeah.
anyone.
So you mentioned some of the classes you take now, like from some people that you look up to and stuff like that, like people that are wanting to go into this industry right now. Is there something, if they can't afford it or like they can't go to schools like you did, is there something you you could kind of give them advice to like maybe look into or anything like that?
Sure. I think there's a ton of resources online. Some of the ones that just come to mind that I've used in the past that work for me, Makeup Forever Academy. They have an amazing program when it comes to education. They do a ton of live classes, especially right now because everything's virtual. It's a really good time for people to learn from home. So there's a lot of free stuff going on right now, a lot of courses that are open. I was a huge fan of Dani Sands, who's the person that created Makeup Forever. She was known for creating Moulin Rouge and, you know, the new Moulin Rouge, not the old Moulin Rouge, but the new Moulin Rouge in Paris, and just Cirque du Soleil. I mean, she's an incredible artist. And those are the beginning courses that I took. And now she's not really involved with Makeup Forever as much, but they still offer an incredible amount of courses. Mud, where I went, which is the makeup designery, they constantly have workshops and courses. Any makeup artists, I highly recommend that they join Powder Group. They are incredible. They're based out of New York, but they have members all over the US, and they do constant workshops, constant shows and things that end up being free to a lot of the members. And it's only like $85 a year to join. But it's been worth it. I've been a member with them for a while, and I always get like great resources and events that you get invited to that don't cost any money, where you can literally be in front of people that are incredible artists that are out there doing the things that you want to do, and you can learn from them. And then there's like places like New Skills Academy and even FIT. They have an online course for makeup. I mean, there's so many resources. Dior Beauty has like a whole backstage series of videos they do. And then there's of course YouTube, and there's no makeup artists on YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of like the Instagram makeup with like the contour face. It's just not the kind of work that I do. I like beauty makeup. But you know,
more natural stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they offer, you know, some great things. I've learned some wonderful things from them as well. So I think you just have to kind of choose what area or what arena you want to go into, and, you know, pick your person that you like, or your influencer, if you want to call them that. And, you know, there's plenty of free stuff out there for sure.
Well, I think that is super helpful for anyone that has been wanting to do this forever and they're like, I don't know how, or like, I'm sure people have reached out to you, and this is a good way to segue into being like, hey, like, I've talked about this before, like, just check this out, because it's like, people want to know how people got places, and it's just, this is one way to kind of give that olive branch to anyone that's listening, to be like, if you want to break out into this industry, like, especially right now, like, there is free education for you online to learn things, and just start from there. We're all sitting in our homes right now, so
yeah. And you can practice on yourself, you know.
Yeah.
There you go.
You've been doing this forever, since you were younger, and like you mentioned doing this at 18. Like, what was the flip of the switch? Like, what got your foot through the door where you were like, I am absolutely going to pursue this. Let's go.
So starting out in the film industry, and just as an actress, and being in front of the camera and getting to know crews, you end up kind of crewing up with people and like-minded individuals, and they start thinking of you, oh, you know, I know you're an actor, but like, we're doing this low budget film, and, you know, it needs a makeup artist, and it's a great way for you to get in there. And that's kind of how I started. People started giving me a chance, and also being at the counter, at the retail counter doing makeup. I think at the time I was with Bobbi Brown Cosmetics. I was getting a lot of opportunities being in New York and being able to work with Bobbi herself. And, you know, you start to get noticed, and you start to be put in scenarios that give you opportunities. And I think I was very blessed because I came up in New York City. I don't think a lot of people, unless you're in LA or New York or Miami, get that opportunity. So I had, you know, that blessing that I was in that city where everything was going on right there, and I was able to meet people and network and get my name in the door. But, you know, it was a lot of hard work. And it's funny because when I started, there was no social media. There was no internet, really. There was no YouTube, none of that. So it was a lot of word of mouth. And, you know, if you worked with a DP and they liked you, they referred you. And then that's how you got your jobs, was like from one place to another. And especially not having an agent at the time, it was all myself and selling myself. I think a lot of it was being at the right place at the right time, and never saying no. And I know that sounds weird, but I did a lot of free work before I got paid work. And I'm not advocating that people should do free work and lessen their value. I think, you know, this is what we do. This is our business, and we have to give ourselves value. But I know a lot of people that would turn opportunities down because they weren't paid. But that opportunity might have got me on the cover of a magazine, and that got me paid work, and it got me noticed. And so I did a lot of free work, knowing that it was either, for a good cause, like for a charity event or something that I knew, there was good coming out of it, or that it got me in the right door. And then I was able to propel myself from that and use that platform to get paid work. And no one tells you what to do. There's no one leading you and letting you know, hey, these are the steps and this is who you need to contact and this is how you get an agent. It was a lot of trial and error. And nowadays, I think it's so much easier because there's so much information out there. We have the internet, we have social media. I mean, there's so much better ways of selling yourself and getting yourself marketed and reaching the people that you want to reach out to. But back then it was literally like the phone book and like stalking, like, okay, who's casting this job and who's the art director, and how am I going to get in front of them, and how am I going to get my physical book in front of them. So it was a lot of hard work back then, but I wouldn't trade it for anything because it made me who I am. Yeah. And it made me work harder.
So you talked about selling yourself and like basically to clients and stuff like that. I feel like that's something we have to do every day, no matter what. Like every time we book a job, like we have to be on and be like, if that client does not end up liking you or your personality or whatever the case may be, or your work, like you will not be booked again. Yeah. And so we are constantly selling ourselves. So also segueing into that, like the difference between word of mouth back then being a major factor versus social media, do you think, since everyone like has been tapping into this makeup industry, especially I feel like makeup, like a lot of YouTubers and influencers, they decided to do makeup on themselves and now this is what they're known for. Do you feel like it's a little harder now to tap into the industry or at least get more work because now there's a big platform where there's like so many people that do it versus like before it was like such a like niche of like small group of people that did hair and makeup, or even hair versus makeup, and now it's like just open the floodgates. Social media has.
I think it's a good thing. I know a lot of my colleagues who look at it in a negative light, and they think, oh, these people are taking our work, or they're taking our, they call themselves pros and they're not. But the way I see it is, you're bringing more awareness to my industry, and you're making more fans out of my industry. And there's a place for everyone in this industry. Whether you're starting at home, a YouTube channel that, you just want to play and you don't know anything about makeup, but putting it on yourself, or you're someone who's been working for 30 years and does celebrity work and, has your name all over the media. I mean, I think there's a place for everyone. And if anything, it makes me more excited, more passionate about my craft, knowing that there's so many types of makeup artists out there and there's so many outlets for a makeup artist to create money. I mean, I wish that I had the sense to create a YouTube channel because it was really nice to stay home and collect but I'm old school, and like this to me, like even just setting up Skype for this today, like it took a little bit. It's not in my blood, but I think it's awesome that there's that opportunity. I think it's great that someone can sit at home like James Charles or Jaclyn Hill and get these great brand deals and all of a sudden put their name on a makeup palette, yet they weren't known as a makeup artist. I think that's really cool. You know what? You have your own niche and you have a fan base. Is it my style of makeup? No. Is it for me? No. Is it for my clients or some of the people I work for? Probably not. But at the same time, it's an art form and it's part of my craft. And I think it's awesome. I do like it. And I think it's great for someone who's starting out because it's like you can really look at the entire spectrum and figure out what type of artist do I want to be.
Yeah.
Do I want to go with that influential market and, be a brand influencer, which I think is great. And there's great money in that. And there's nothing wrong with it. If you're somebody who is comfortable on camera and loves talking to people, go for it. I'm more of a hermit crab. I rather, like sit behind the scenes, do my makeup. Like I even cringe whenever somebody wants to like take a crew pic. I'm like, oh, don't get in front of the camera. That's just me, but it doesn't mean that, it's that my style is for everyone. So I think it's cool. I don't dislike it and I don't look down on it. I think if anything, it just creates more demand for people like me.
I definitely agree because it's like also we do so much work, and I can't imagine, especially since you were so involved in the industry before social media, like how it would be. You can't show off your work as much as you can nowadays with social media. All you have to do is just post it.
It is. It's incredible.
I absolutely love that outlook that you have, that there is enough for everyone. You know, like this isn't just my world. There's enough for everyone. There's enough to go around. I love that outlook. Throughout this journey, where did you ever encounter any hardships or hurdles that just kind of made you want to like, I don't think I can go on?
Or did it make you stronger?
A little bit of both. I actually left the industry for about 2 years. And not a lot of people know this. I was in New York and I was actually doing really well. I had a couple celebrity clients that I was working with on a regular basis. And one of these particular clients was not the nicest person to work for. And at the time, I was going through some sort of a journey within myself. I became vegan and I was starting to look at some of the fashion industry that I worked with as excessive and unnecessary. And I was trying to be more sustainable in my life, and noticed, some of the people I worked with and the crews that were just toxic at the time. And I was kind of slowly trying to figure out my place in the industry at the time. I was working with this client and I was doing their makeup for an appearance, and it always would get to me how nasty they were to their assistant and the people around them. And it was one of those things where that day I just had it. And I finished their makeup and I literally picked up my stuff and left and kind of walked out away from the event knowing that, I wasn't released yet. I got home and I realized, well, I probably just screwed myself and I probably just lost that client. Oddly enough, I didn't lose the client, but a part of me started to realize how fake some of the people in the industry were. And I wanted to position myself in a different light with a different crew. So I decided to go back to school and get my master's in something that I was passionate about that had nothing to do with makeup. I love sharks. I studied sharks, and that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, awesome.
So I ended up getting a job at the zoo and left the industry full time for about 2 years. And I loved it. And it was just like a little recharge. And I ended up missing the industry eventually, but it was nice to step away from it and kind of regroup myself and sort of figure out what was important to me and what I was willing to work with at the time. And I think it's hard when you're coming up and you're trying to impress people and you're trying to, get booked and continue to get booked. And maybe you see something or you hear something that doesn't really collide with your moral values, but sometimes we kind of like suck it up because we have to, because it's our job, and something that I just didn't want to do. So I took those 2 years to kind of walk away from the industry full time. And I was still doing things here and there, but I was saying no to a lot of bookings. And I was working another full-time job at the zoo, and I was kind of pursuing my animal conservation and my passion there. But I ended up missing the industry. I came back and it like realigned how I felt about it and who I was willing to work with and who I wasn't. And I ended up firing that celebrity client, actually. So it was empowering because I was like, this is what I'm not willing to put up with and who I'm willing to work with and who I'm not. And so it was really empowering to have that say and to be able to come back and do that. But yeah, that was a hard 2 years.
Yeah, I could kind of relate to that story, to just having an agency. Like I kind of started with a smaller agency. Well, I started in this industry without an agent, and then an agent seeked me out, and then I was like, oh, this exists? Did not know. And then they got me work and did certain things, and then after a while, things just kept falling at the waistline, and I felt like I was reaching a point in my career where I was like, I don't really need you anymore. I moved to New York and they were like, oh, we have clients, we'll get you jobs, we'll do, no worries, like definitely make that move. I went up there, did not get me a job in New York, not even one. And then when I would reach out to them, I was like, hey, like, is there any, like, have you heard anything from this client or that client? They were like, no, we haven't heard anything, but have you found any clients? Which I have on my own accord. And I was like, that is crazy. Like, and the one client I was working, which was outside of New York, which was through them, would have to come out and ask me what my schedule was, because they said, I do not want to wait on your agency. And I was like, wow. There's just a point where I was like, I've reached a point where I could actually be on my own. I have enough clients on my own. Like I could just do this on my own, and I feel comfortable about it, because also in New York, a lot of people don't have agencies. They do and they don't. And I didn't know that was an option. Sure. Just because I had one for such a long time. And then I just felt comfortable and like strong enough, kind of like you, to like fire a client. That's a big deal, to just be like, I'm not going to take your money anymore.
Yeah.
So it was like me kind of being like, I feel like I could do this on my own now. So I could definitely relate to that story.
Yeah, that story like resonates so hard with me because I feel like it's my current situation, you know, like I'm in the military and a lot of times we have to suck it up, but within the organization there are like mini organizations and they all have a different mission, they all have a different purpose. And while my first gig, I love the mission, I love the why. My second gig, I'm like, this doesn't really align with my values. And like, you know, now I'm having to go through that self-reflection, especially during the COVID, you know, period. Like all you have is like time to reflect and go, what do I really love? And so this kind of what propelled us starting the podcast is like I love people. My sister and I both love people. We love connecting with people. And now we're, you know, the job doesn't become your identity. Let me go after like and reintroduce some of the stuff like and remind myself the stuff that I love and continue to pursue that. Like,
and it's hard, you know, because we love our jobs and we want to make money and we want to be liked and respected and you know, but at the same time it's like you won't sleep at night, you won't feel right about it, you know, and at the end of the day it's like all this shit is superficial. You know,
Right.
none of this matters in the scheme of things. You know, what's important is how you feel about yourself and, you know, if you feel like you're comfortable with the situation or not. And it's hard to make a change sometimes, you know.
If you could look back at everything you've been doing like up until this point, what is some major things that you've learned along the way that would help anybody else that wanted to embark on this journey?
Knowledge is power. I think the more you know, the better equipped that you can be for any job. I think the ability of wearing many hats, being personable, being likable is huge. I know people that will book, you know, a colleague based on their personality. Maybe they're not the best at what they do, but they love having them on set. And I think that's amazing. I think that talent can be taught and personality and energy cannot. So you either have it or you don't. I think being, you know, happy and pleasant and polite and someone who's respectful on set, someone who's willing to learn and doesn't take criticism badly, because you're going to have somebody like in my field, as you know, Stacey, someone will come up and be like, that doesn't work, you know, fix that. Yeah. Or, you know, the hair looks like crap. How would I or, you know, you cut it too short. I mean, there's so many things, you know, that can go wrong or it can happen, and you can't take it personal. You can't. You just have to fix it and you have to make it work, because at the end of the day, time is money. And, you know, for us, everyone's relying on us before they start to shoot. You know, the model gets there, I have to make them up, you have to dress them. But if we're not there, there is nothing to shoot.
Yeah, no production's happening.
So, you know, which is good job security for us. But, you know, at the end of the day, if something goes wrong, they love to blame hair and makeup. They love to blame the stylist. So we take a lot of brunt, but you just have to do it with a smile and just remember that it's not personal, and remember that, you know, there's a learning lesson in everything and you can't take it too seriously. And just have a thick skin. It's a hard business. It's a lot of fun and it's an awesome business. You know, we get to meet awesome people all the time and be creative every single day that we work. And it's such a blessing. I mean, it really is. Like, I pinch myself sometimes. I'm on set and I'm like, this is so cool. You know, but at the end of the day, you know, it's all about, did we get the result? Did we get what we came in for? And no matter how the team came together to get it done, that's all that matters. It's not about one single person getting credit, because really it takes a village. So I think it's just about like being a sponge and being able to just absorb everything and asking questions. It's okay to ask questions. You know, I'd rather tell somebody I don't know how to do that than be like, oh, sure, and then totally mess it up and they never book me again. You know, So just be honest about your skill set and your ability as well.
I think asking questions, I do that continuously because, you know, like things change constantly in our industry. It could change within the day multiple times. You have to lose that factor of like not wanting to speak up, because you have to speak up in this industry to make sure you're going to get what the client actually wants in the end. But I definitely agree with you. Like, your personality has a lot to do with it. And I was talking to Ari. It kind of sucks in a sense, because it's like people that are introverted, they might not get as many opportunities as other people that are extroverted. We were saying that we're both, and it's kind of like, I do my time and I'm working with everybody on set and I do love it and we all feed off of each other. But at the same time, I'm gonna need my like alone time to recharge after that. Like everybody wants to hang out after work and I'm like, that was hanging out for me right now. Like I need some time by myself because it's a lot of energy and it just takes a lot out of you.
I completely agree with you. I would say I'm more of an introvert.
Yeah, same.
I definitely, I'm always awkward meeting someone new. It's,
I
to
have
me,
to warm up to people.
yeah, like I have to get to know you, and it's not anything against anybody. It's just my own, like anxiety and fears, you know. But it's true, and it's funny because I know a lot of people that can like go, like they'll finish like a full 12-hour day on set, and then yeah, let's go get drinks. And I'm with you guys, like. When I get home, I tell my boyfriend, like, don't talk to me for like 20 minutes. I've been talking to people all day long, you know, hearing camera flashes going on, loud music. Like, I just want like 20 minutes of quiet time to myself, you know, because we don't have any time during the day. Like, we only break for lunch and to go to the bathroom, and that's it, you know. There's no downtime really with what we do unless, you know, you just don't have anything to shoot that day. But for the most part, you know, if you're working, there's something to do. And you know, there's definitely no downtime that I feel like I could just like go sit in a corner quietly. They're gonna be like, why aren't you like paying attention to your model? You know?
Yeah.
So I totally get it. Oh my gosh, there's a puppy.
Yeah. She's being sleepy all day, so we're like, she's gonna be good to be in here today.
Yeah, she's part of our show.
Or we're trying to make her a part. Just like a little cute figurehead.
Girl power, right? You know, like
she's
all
a girl,
here.
so girl power for sure. I will say, I could relate to, like, you made me remember that, like, every time I travel, like, I have to spend one day, like, no one talking to me. When you're, like, you go home and you tell your boyfriend, like, don't, like, talk to me, I've been around all this. Like, even when I lived in New York, my roommates, I'd be gone for 2 weeks and I come back, or a week, and they're like, what's up with you? Because the first day I just close myself in the room, I just like watch TV, I order food or do whatever, and it's like that's my one day. And then like even one of their friends were like, oh, so you just starfish all day? And I'm like, yeah, just lay in bed, just like relax all day. And I have to do that one day, like when I get back the first day, and then I'm good. Then I can do all the errands I need to do and catch up with life. But I think that's important. You're gonna have to take time to yourself, especially if you're traveling a lot for work. Like, you need to know what works for you. Otherwise, I'm sure people can reach breaking points at that point. Like, I mean, I've definitely been gone from home like 3 months out of the year, staying in one location at a time. Like, that is very exhausting, not being at your home for 3 months.
It is. It's mentally draining. It's physically draining. I mean, what we do is physically draining. You know, we're on the entire time. We don't get to sit. We don't get to like sit down, especially, you know, for stylists. When you're styling, you're up and down. And, you know, I don't know about you, but like when I style a whole day, I come home and I'm sore. Like my calves are sore, my butt is sore, up and down from the shoes to the top, you know. And also like you're constantly, you know, having to create solutions. So it's also brain exhausting. And then you're dealing with the general public. You're, you know, emotionally draining because you're sharing with yourself. I mean, we spent so much time together that you become really close and tight, and you have like a little work family or a crew family. But it's also like emotionally draining because you're giving. So I completely agree. Like you need a day just to yourself, whether it's, you know, go climb a mountain or, you know, go sit somewhere and meditate or whatever, however you deal with that. Is so important. It's so crucial just for your mental state, your physical state, your emotional state. Definitely, for sure.
Yeah, you just need to find your thing. Everybody should have their thing to like recharge for sure.
So you mentioned doing a lot of work in New York. Are you currently out there now?
I'm not. I moved to North Carolina 5 years ago now.
Okay.
I'm here, yeah, but I go up to New York a lot still for work because it's like right. I mean, it's literally an hour flight. And I have connections up there still, but the more that I've started working in my territory, the less that I have to go, which is kind of nice. I was looking for a change of pace, and I wanted to buy something. I wanted to buy a house, and I just couldn't see myself doing that in New York City. It's a rat race, and no matter how much money you make there, it seems like it's always going to living expenses. And I got to a point in my life where I was like, I'm never going to be able to like own anything or property or go on like extravagant trips, which I love to travel, and not just for work. Like I want to be able to travel on my own and afford it and not have to worry about like, oh yeah, let me just take like half of my paycheck towards rent. because that's what it is living in New York. And I found, going back to, I actually went to school in North Carolina. I went to college here. So I had some roots here and some friends, and it was close enough where I could go to Miami. There's direct flights to LA. It was really central and very inexpensive. But at the same time, I fell into this little jewel of a market because there's so much work here. And I never realized it. I mean, there's an incredible amount of headquarters. There's a ton of e-com and catalog work here. Companies are now flying from New York. Clients that I used to work with in New York are now shooting here, which is insane. And the rates are not terrible. Like compared to New York, they may be a little lower. But as Stacey, you mentioned earlier, you're working once a month in these big markets. And yeah, maybe a big paid job, but then you're not getting a call for another month. Here, I'm lucky. I work every day sometimes.
Exactly.
And every week I'm working. And that's like, I'm making way more money here than I was in New York. And my cost of living is cheaper. I have a bigger house. I have a yard for my dogs. Like my boyfriend and I are able to travel and do things that we couldn't if we lived in New York. So it's been a blessing, honestly. It's been like a really, like, it's like a hidden secret. I tell people, I'm like,
oh, that's what I was gonna say. There's like little hidden gems of a whole bunch of studios or clients in a lot of different states. I feel like not just North Carolina, even in Kentucky. That's where I started, and my dream was always to move to New York, and I could totally relate to what you're saying because I saved up this big chunk of money, and I was like, it's time now. I could move to New York, and my agent said they're gonna help me out, which they didn't, but it's fine. I still work continuously, and I just felt like exactly what you're saying. It's just so much of a hustle. You're always on. There's no we're not gonna work today. It's like I want to work every single day. You're just gonna have to do the constant turnaround of work, get that hustle. And I also felt I can't travel now. And I'd love to travel. I can't travel because I want to make money. And that, what you were saying, a lot of my money went to rent. And I was just I am turning down work because I want to be in the city. And that, I feel is not a good situation. You shouldn't have to be able to turn down work, especially what we do. And then that was the point where I was just I had to reflect. I probably called my sister a lot during that time. And I was just I have a month in my lease, and it's this is the crucial point of do I want to stay in the city and constantly hustle? And yes, I've gained clients here and I've made traction. I was happy in the city, but it was just, do I just want to work and be comfortable and not have to worry and stress about these things, or do I want to stay in the city? I felt if I stayed in the city, it was just to say I'm living in New York, and that's not who I am. I stay true to who I am, and I'm nope, I'm just gonna continue what I'm doing and also make more money because I'm not in the city. And I'm gonna see where this career is gonna take me, this career path. And until it doesn't make sense anymore, I'm just gonna continue doing it. Because what you said, the industry's changed so much. It's I don't know what it's gonna look like even after this pandemic, let alone a few years from now.
Yeah, and that's actually what I was trying to get at is, so with most of your job between New York and working every day in North Carolina, how has that changed with the current situation with the coronavirus?
Well, I've been out of work since March 13th. Literally, the last studio I worked at, they were closing their studio that Friday, and I worked with them Wednesday and Thursday. And by the 18th, everything in my area was shut down. We got our stay in place order, I believe it was the 18th or 19th. And at that point, it had gone from, having a group of 50 people to a group of 10 people or and less, which really limits any crew. So the one studio that was currently still shooting, they were doing just product shots with no talent. But it literally within that week, everything shut down. And I probably had 7 jobs cancel.
Wow.
I was supposed to be at Dillard's the beginning of April. And so obviously that canceled. And then I had 3 big jobs that I was super relying on financially, and they completely canceled. I mean, I don't know that they would cancel. They probably will eventually reschedule. Because, clients still need to shoot their products, unfortunately. So, fortunately for us, hopefully those things will get rescheduled. But yeah, it definitely put our industry into a complete halt. And it's frustrating because being self-employed or considered an independent contractor, there's not a lot out there. Like I've applied for unemployment. I've yet to see it.
Same.
So, we're going on a month here without a paycheck. Fortunately, I have like open invoices still that my agents are collecting, but they're not in the office, and a lot of those studios are closed. So there's really no one in accounting to even pay these invoices. So I was kind of relying on this like PPP loan and these loans that were put out there for us. And unfortunately, the funding didn't go as planned. They ran out of funding before, they can even approve it, a lot of people. So it's been an interesting experience because I've never been out of work this long. I've never had to, even ask myself, what would I do if our industry doesn't come back or doesn't bounce back? And I've been in talks with a lot of fellow makeup artists, because for us and for stylists, we are right on top of the model. I mean, it is our job to be in close proximity with them. The photographer can shoot from 6 feet of distance,
Exactly.
Everyone else around can work at a distance. But for us, how does that change it? How does that affect us going forward? And the last makeup I did wear a mask and gloves because, it had just reached San Francisco and there were, spreads of the virus. So I didn't want to chance anything because, we have talent flying in from the West Coast and from New York, and you just never know if people are, exposed to the virus and they're not even aware of it. So I was being really diligent, and I'm always very hygienic regardless, but I've like completely upped my hygiene even more. Like I don't, we're even like discussing like disposable makeup where like you have just for that one person and that one person only. And I think this is very eye-opening and very challenging for our industry because, how do we move forward? What is it going to look like when we get on set?
Exactly.
Is everyone going to be wearing a mask and gloves? I tried doing makeup with gloves. It does not work. It does not. So you just have to like constantly wash your hands. I even have like these face shields that I'm going to look like a total like welder going in, but I have to protect myself and I have to protect my talent. And I was a part of a discussion on Facebook Live yesterday with Epic Makeup, Melissa Street, who's a very regarded makeup artist in our industry. And, she's getting a lot of people calling in and asking her like what to do. And she's like, I'm in the same boat as you. I don't have any answers, like this is new for us. Like
we're in uncharted territory right now for everybody.
Exactly. We don't know what the first set that we're back is going to look like, or what guidelines or rules we're going to have. Barbicide, the company Barbicide, actually put out a PDF manual for people in the spa and salon industry that can actually correlate to us makeup and hair people on set, just precautions and things you can do. But even with the precautions, it doesn't mean that we're not going to be susceptible to this. And at the end of the day, I want my job to succeed. I want our industry to keep going. I want to still be in demand. So how it's going to change, what it's going to look like, I don't know. And it's scary and, raises a lot of questions. And it opens up discussion, which is great. I think if you weren't a clean makeup artist before, you will be now. Yay.
Oh,
how
yeah.
is that?
Yeah.
Would be.
Yes.
But we will get through it. I know that.
Exactly,
It's just going to be, like you said, it's uncharted course. So, what's it going to look like? I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered, I mean, you just talked about education is so important and you still attend like all these workshops. Have you ever considered doing your own workshop?
I have. I've been a national trainer for cosmetic companies and I loved it. But it's really challenging. I mean, you're almost like a professor because when I was working for these companies, I would have to research ingredients and like be like a biochemist, like really know how these ingredients affected people and how to train somebody on using a product that could possibly hurt someone else if they have a reaction to it or whatever. So you end up like learning a lot and having to do a lot of research. And I love speaking in front of people. Like that doesn't bother me. But at the end of the day, there's nothing like doing makeup.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't trade it. Like if someone was like, oh, you could go be a trainer or you could teach or you can do, I would rather do. That's just more where my passion lies. But I have done it. And who knows, maybe in the future, if things change, I'll be teaching a YouTube course. I don't know. I've thought about it. It's at the same time, having all this time on our hands right now, it has been such a blessing because it's allowed me to do things that I normally wouldn't have time for. And a lot of my excuses why I wouldn't start a YouTube channel or do a training tutorial. So this is like, well, I'm working all the time. I don't have
time.
That's right. Now I have the time and I'm still not doing it. So it's like, okay, shame on me. But it just doesn't interest me. It doesn't.
Yeah.
I would do than teach.
Is part of doing actually having that human interaction with the model and with the crew, like that's part of why you love it so much? So going off of future goals, like stuff that you mentioned, just talking about the future, do you have any personal or like business goals that you had maybe before the pandemic and then maybe now after the pandemic?
Yes. So, if things hopefully proceed and we're able to get back to work, I'd like to get more international work. I think that's been my goal for the past couple years. I love the different sort of take that makeup or a look or an editorial has in a different part of the world, and how it's influenced by culture. And I love traveling and learning from different cultures. And so my goal would be to get more internationally work, to maybe get an agency to represent me, outside of the US, that I can go and create in different environments, and learn from different cultures, because makeup is so different in so many different areas or different parts of the world. You think about tribes in Mozambique and how they wear their headdress and their makeup, and it's tribalistic and ritualistic. And then there's, Aborigines in Papua New Guinea and how they wear their makeup. And so it also it sparks this like fusion between like culture and like fashion, and how you can take those different parts of cultures and make it fashion, or make it editorial, and make it modern, and depict a story that way. And so I would love that. I would love to be able to work all around the world, with different camera crews or different crews and different art directors, and take, culturally ideas and blend them together with what we're working on.
I love that goal.
Yeah.
I would love that too.
Have you done a shoot outside of the country, or have you? Okay.
Yes, I have. So Montenegro, we actually did a shoot in Croatia and Montenegro, which was incredible, like beautiful, incredible landscapes. And then I've worked in my country, Colombia, but really, and in Mexico, actually. I'm trying to think where else. I think that's it.
Maybe Africa?
I wish. I've been to India, but I didn't do any work there while I was in India. I'm trying to think of places I've been if I've worked there. No, so that was it. As far as like work, it's been those 3 countries.
I know I saw something like you were in an editorial, or like there was a magazine shoot like in a different
country. It could always look like it though, because doing what we do, like things look like you're in different countries. Yeah. Like that's part of what we try to do.
I was gonna say, I've done campaigns that I've ran in other countries, but we shot them in the States.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay.
That's a major goal. And is there any other goals that you have other than that?
I think just to continue to work. That's a big goal, obviously, because we are freelance, and nothing is guaranteed in our world, even with an agent or no agent. It doesn't matter. It's about who books you and who likes you, and who's going to continue to use you for stuff. So just to be bookable, to be continued to think of, to be thought of for projects, and just to get my name out there more. I think that's so important in our industry. There's so much work throughout the country that I haven't even tapped into, and just to be able to do that, and to be able to network with more people. And then collaborations, I'm huge on them. A lot of the time the work we do may not be our ideal work, like you talked about doing e-com and things like that pays the bills, but that may not be like your idea of a dream job or a dream project. But maybe you have this amazing idea for a dream project and you want to see it come to fruition. I love collaborating with people, and I love like putting things together that we can, submit for submission and try to get it published. That doesn't necessarily mean we're getting paid for, but it's fueling our creative desires and our creative vision, which sometimes can be mundane in our environment based on if, we're only doing commercial work, or we're only doing e-com, or, you're only doing this. So just to be able to branch out with different people and collaborate also.
So for the viewers that might not know what submissions are, can you explain like how that process works?
Sure. So a spec shoot or a spec submission shoot is something that you would put together, whether it's your idea or the photographer. You get the crew together, book a model, get the clothes, get the idea, shoot it, and then you want to try to get it published. So one of the sources that I personally use is Caviar. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but
Yeah.
it's a great resource. Basically, any magazine outside of your larger magazines like Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, Vanity Fair, those are magazines that they don't take submissions. They actually will do commissions. So they'll actually, build a crew and create the editor of the magazine will actually create the project and then they'll shoot it. And then there's magazines such as like Lucy's and Vulcan and Jamara and all these great smaller magazines that are constantly looking for work. And it's great to be published because, the more that you get published, the more serious you're taken, the more your work gets out there, the more that you have power in your industry because you have a tear sheet with your name on it and you can show off your work. So it takes you to a different level. And I don't think a lot of people realize that you don't have to have an agent to do that. You don't have to be currently working full time in the industry to do that. I mean, if you have a great idea and you have the means to get a model and a stylist, or if you want to style it yourself and do the hair and makeup yourself, I mean, whatever works. It's a lot easier than creating, something that you're getting paid for. And you have the opportunity to get it out there and get your name out there and see your name in print, which is really cool.
That's exactly why I wanted you to share it, because I feel like a lot of people don't know that side of like, you don't have to be known, you don't have to do anything, you're just submitting your work that you created with other people. So thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else you wanted to add to your story or your journey or about your business, which is yourself?
I think maybe just a piece of advice for, someone starting out. Don't take no for an answer. I sure didn't. I heard a lot of no's before I heard yes. And I just felt like this was my calling. And if you feel strong and passionate about it, pursue it. And I'm also a big fan of, you don't have to put yourself in a category. You don't have to be a makeup artist your entire life. You can branch out and do other things. And if music inspires you, or art, or being a dental hygienist, or, working in the military, or whatever inspires you, you could do it. And it's never too late to do it. So if you've been in your career for 20 years and you've been a banker, but you want to be a makeup artist, go be a makeup artist. Yeah. It's never too late. It's never too late. And I think that pursuing passion is your human right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
yeah.
That's definitely on par with what we're trying to get out there and why we're asking people to share their story, because we want people to understand that this is the path they're taking. If you want to take a different path, there are endless paths open to you.
But yeah, like people sharing their journey of living purposefully and pursuing their passion, that is exactly, what the theme of this show is that. If you could go back to your past self, what advice would you give?
Don't take yourself so hard. Like, don't be so hard on yourself. Don't be so critical of yourself. And I still do it. I mean, I think by nature we're competitive humans, and especially in this industry. I can look at someone's work and be like, oh man, they're amazing. Like, I'll never do that. I'll never be able to do that. But maybe I can. I just keep doubting myself or putting myself down and judging my work. I will dissect my makeup. and it's unhealthy because like I'll zoom in, I'll be like, oh my god, there's like a lash out of place, and my boyfriend's like, you're insane, no one's gonna notice that. I'm like, but I know it's there. So I think it's like it's this like letting go of like, and it's hard as an artist, and hard. Like any type of artist can relate. It's hard to put yourself out there because that is a piece of yourself, your art, whether it's on a face or a canvas or on a mannequin or whatever you're doing, to put it out there and have judgment passed is like, oh, but at the end of the day, it's all about, did you get the finished result? Did you accomplish something? Did you feel good about it? Do you feel good waking up every morning and going to work? And that's what matters. And it's hard to not criticize and not put yourself down and not be like, oh, I could have done this better, or I should have gone back and done this, or maybe I shouldn't have used that color. But everything's a learning experience. So we just have to take it and let it go and move forward, and move on to the next project.
Yeah, I see a lot of that with my sister. And I mean, she knows that with herself, like, just being in the industry, she always, because it is that reflection of like your work and like having to get that out there, like exactly how you want it. And then like, she'll be very like, oh, I could have done that better.
I'm just very hyper aware. And I think it's because, and I was explaining to her, there was a study done where like a photographer, they were taking a photograph, and I don't know what the study is, this, but I don't remember what it was called, but they took a photograph and they had people like us in the industry, like a photographer, another photographer, and the artist look at this photo, and like the way they like scanned our eyes and they saw where our eyes went in the photo, we looked everywhere. As like the common person that's not that much into art or anything like that, they just looked at the main focal point. And I just think we dissect things like what you're saying, and like we just kind of want it to be the best. And I think everyone's kind of like critical of themselves, but at the same time, if you are artistic and stuff like that, I feel like we're harsher on ourselves, because like we have a message to get across, our vision, and we want it to get across a certain way.
Yeah, and I live in an opposite world where
just get it
everything I do is like on a timeline or in front of a big group, and then the feedback is open, and like you not only like knock down yourself, like you've got a room full of people high ranking that are like, that was crap. And you just kind of have to like, all right, you know, like I don't even have enough time to dwell on what I did wrong, but like more importantly, like, okay, I just know for next time not to do X, you know, like, and that's how we continue to move. It's just, we just keep going. It's really hard because we have that similar personality, and it took me a long time in the military, like, you know, as soon as like someone was critical, when I'm already critical on myself, or I'm already hard on myself, like it was like twice that. And then I just had to like let go, like she said. I had to like be a little more resilient and have a thicker skin. And that's what kind of pushed me through.
So we ask those 3 questions every time. You answered our first question. Our second question is, who would you, now that you've been on the show, like, and you know what we're about and sharing people's stories and their journey to help others, like who would you want to see that you know their story? Who would you want to see on the show?
There's a few people. Actually, I have an art director friend that I'd love to, you know, put you guys in touch with. She's out in San Francisco, and she has worked for Gap and Old Navy and J. Crew, and has done some pretty amazing campaigns.
Yeah.
Been in the business for a long time, and it's cool to hear her take on things, because she's a little more old school also. But there's also a few people. I was thinking of some photographer friends as well. I think right now is a great time because there's a lot of people at home, and people are craving content, and people are open to giving content. So I think, you know, I was like actually thinking of like making a list for you and just reaching out and seeing who might be interested. But off the bat, she was the first person that came to mind.
Absolutely. Like that's probably one of the most favorite parts of like doing these podcasts is, you know, like it sparks something inside of our guests, and they immediately have someone in mind of like, you know, this person impacted my life, or this person's story is amazing, or here's some inspiration. Like it really keeps us going for sure.
Or that story is like worth sharing.
Yeah.
Which we think every story is. I think like part of this is nothing is too big and nothing is too small. I think everyone can learn from each other's stories. That's kind of what sparked this podcast. Like we meet new people every day, which we mentioned, and like we learn things about them, whether it's like that day or years down the road, and you're just like, wow, I would have never guessed that that is your story. We don't want to have surface value conversations. We want to get in depth and like actually have takeaways for us and other people so that we could all improve and find our happiness.
I think it's awesome. I love that you guys are doing this, honestly. There's so many stories to tell, and
exactly.
It builds human connection in a different way.
For sure. Because it's not like just like all these, you know, celebrities, like none of us are any of that, you know. It is no kidding.
It's real life here.
Yeah, like this is real life, you know.
I might relate to one of their stories, but their life I can't relate to.
We chose your road code because, you know, we love travel, you know, and
just like you.
Yeah, thankfully a lot of our guests love travel. And so our fun question is, what is the best trip you've ever taken? And if there's like more than one, you can tell us, but I love hearing about people's trips.
There's 2 that stand to mind because I think they were so needed at the time that I took them. The first one, I backpacked Costa Rica in my early 20s with one of my best friends, and it was a surreal experience. You know, really, I learned a lot about myself. We put ourselves in situations and places that when I travel, I don't like to go to like the touristy spots. I like to hang with the locals and really get to know their culture. And so we tend to stay on the paths that are more private or reserved or off the beaten path. And that was what that trip was really about. And just getting to meet so many different people from all over the world, and, surfing in some of the best areas of the world. There was so much fun and adventure. And there was a time where we thought we were going to get robbed. And there was a time where we took this like 4-hour horseback tour into the jungle that turned into a complete nightmare, that like we thought we were going to die at one point. It was like a movie. There was like, romance and action and, suspense. But it was such a great trip, and I learned so much about myself. And then just to be able to have a friend that you could travel with that for that long, and like literally, because we stayed in hostels, we were broke students, so we were just like living it rough, like $8 a night in a hostel type of trip, which was phenomenal. But I learned a lot about myself and pushing my limits and out of my comfort zone. And then a few years ago, I was on the path to get my yoga certification, and I ended up going to India for 2 months. And that was completely eye-opening and spiritually awakening, and just one of the most beautiful trips I've ever had in my life. I fell in love with that country. I fell in love with its people and its richness. And even though it's a very poor country, they're rich in so many other areas that it really just takes you, it makes you realize what you take for granted. Because we're so fortunate. We live in a first world country, and we have so many amenities and luxuries and things that, half the world does not. Just to be able to sort of live in their shoes and kind of realize that there's a different meaning of happiness in life, and what really is happiness and what really is important. And some of the poorest people in that country gave me hospitality and gave me food and gave me conversation and company. And it was just a beautiful experience and very spiritual. I loved it. I would love to go back and like spend like 6 months there.
I love both of those adventures that you took and the takeaway from it. I feel like if anything, we added that fun question. It's kind of made us feel like, since doing these interviews, that hopefully this sparks in other people to even travel and like see different cultures and open their eyes to like the world out there, because it isn't just here in the States. Everybody has different cultures and different things going on, and it's just a great eye-opener traveling for sure. Now that we've kind of reached the end of our journey, sad to say, where can people find you?
Sure. The easiest is probably my Instagram, because it's the most updated and probably the most social media that I use. I'm not big on social media. So it's the one site or the one area that I know like I do keep up with. But it's my Instagram, and it's the Janis Mara, TheJanisMara, and you can see my recent work. It's not a personal page. I am shy when it comes to social media. I'm old school, as I mentioned. I didn't even have social media until like 3 years ago, and it made me get it. So it really is, if you want to learn more about what I do and to see some of my work, and I try to give a little bit of a personal aspect to it, because I know that people don't just want to see like boring pictures. They want to obviously connect to the human that's behind them, but that's probably like the best site. And then I do have a website. It's Janis, Janis Lozano, Lozano.info. And that can tell you a little bit more about me and the clients I've worked with, and some of my work that's not on my Instagram is on there as well.
We'll definitely link all this below into any of the podcasts or YouTube. We'll link that in the description so people will know how to find you. Thank you so much for coming on and like taking this journey and sharing your stories with us.
Yes, thank you so much. Like I've really enjoyed it. It allows me to like step out of the military world, and I've enjoyed a lot of our podcasts. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I so appreciate it. This has been really fun, and I hope that this comes with a lot of success for you guys. And I'll be sure to send people your way as well. If anybody that I think will be great for this, I'll definitely send them over.